great night to start some history celebrating. I absolutely love the awkward pause before the beginning of an event. It makes me feel like we're about to do something amazing. Are we all set at the days here? Yeah, I think we're good. Well, good evening. My name is Athena Jackson, and I'm a proud 1997 graduate of the University of Houston. I also went to Wharton County Junior College, and I serve as the University of Houston Libraries Dean and Elizabeth D. Rockwell. I'm her chair. On behalf of the UH Libraries, I'd like to welcome you to the MD Anderson Library Elizabeth D. Rockwell Pavilion for the 100 Years of Story, Agents of Change opening exhibit. We are so pleased to partner on this wonderful project, which is a 3-year storytelling collaboration with colleagues at the UH Center for Public History and the Houston Public Media. The early phase of this project took place during our remote time in 2020, and UH Libraries provided virtual research assistance and trained researchers to use archival finding aids, digital collections, and our audiovisual repository. I'm going to recognize the contributions of some of my colleagues in the libraries who played a role in this endeavor, from everything from student research and public programming, promotion and event coordination, and technology services for the past 3 years. I'm going to name them all, and then we're going to clap for them. They're not all here, so I'm not going to force anyone to stand up, but if they're not here, they're here in spirit. So I want to have special thanks to Christian Kelleher, Mary Manning, Bethany Scott, Emily Vinson, Greg Yerke, Esmeralda Fisher, Mauricio Lazo, Dwindle Nelson, Jay Fisher, Barkath Ali, all of whom worked together with our partners to make this a successful experience. Please join me in giving them applause. And I also want to highlight the public history graduate students of Dr. Monica Perales' class, who curated this wonderful exhibit you'll see tonight as part of their coursework, empowering them with hands-on archival and preservation experiences and preparing them for a career in public history. The 100 Year Stories Project was made possible through a gift from Carrie C. Shewart, a native Houstonian who dedicated her time and resources to benefit art, education, and women's causes throughout the region. Ms. Shewart provides generous support for the Carrie C. Shewart Women's Research Collections, accessible here in the Special Collections and online. We're honored to preserve and make accessible the records of women's organizations and the papers of Texas women in this collection for learning and research. Please join me in thanking Carrie C. Shewart. The spirit of discovery is critical to student success. UH Libraries' mission is to enhance student learning, empower the development of scholarly research, and promote discovery of knowledge from diverse and relevant resources. That's why we're thrilled to host this exhibit at MD Anderson Library, a project that engaged our UH students in discovering and sharing notable narratives of UH and its people. The materials you're going to see in the exhibit are from our university archives, a significant research collection accessible here in UH Special Collections and online. And she didn't know I was going to do this, but our university archivist is here, Mary Manning. If you'll stand and just give her a little applause. I told her I wasn't going to call her out, but I just had to. Sharing the impact of the student curators' learning and research is essential to amplifying their voices and those from the people and communities that shaped our university, a few of whom you'll hear from this evening. Community engagement is built into the purpose and vision of our university and our libraries. This exhibit tells the story of UH activists and advocates who laid the foundation for the thriving academic and athletic powerhouse the university is today. Through the perspectives of these student curators, they discovered and experienced the history of our university by working in our archives. And it shines a light on the voices of all who are here. And I promise you there's only one of me, because two would be kind of scary. In 2027, University of Houston will celebrate its centennial. I think we need to cheer for that, please. So this exhibit features pivotal points from the last 100 years of distinction, and as you view it, I want to encourage you to consider the stories and the themes that emerge from the archives, and imagine how the university will continue to evolve as a leading research institution and community partner. I want to thank you so much for being here, and now I want to introduce you to my best friend and co-host, Dean Dan O'Connor from class.
All right, don't expect that much personality from me, but thank you all for being here. First of all, this is a tremendously big event, and we're happy to celebrate it. It's only been 100 years in the making. I'm the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts Social Sciences, Dan O'Connor. I earned my PhD from here at U of H, go Cougs. And that's where the Center for Public History is housed within the Department of History, which is housed in the college. I would like to also thank some people, not least of which is the Chair of History, who's here, Nancy Beck Young, and all the history faculty. We've already mentioned Dr. Perales, who's been leading this center for years now, but before that it was Dr. Martin Malosi. I'm not sure if he is here, he's on the list, but here he is, right here. Thank you for starting the Center for Public History. It wasn't quite 100 years ago that we started the center, but and then Dr. Mark Goldberg, who's the current director of the Center for Public History and a faculty member in the history department. I also want to thank all of the students who have worked on this, all of the people along the way, the magazine, Debbie Harwell. It's a tremendous endeavor. It's one of the things we're really proud of, not only in the college, but at the university. I think this is a great example of how, as Dean Jackson was alluding to, there's obviously a lot of people involved in this. It's a great example of what a public institution can do and what we should be about. First of all, it's about education of our students and getting them experiences that not only are valuable in terms of them learning things, but when they go into the community, how they can contribute back and build community, societal worth, and so on, employment, get jobs. But we also involve faculty, and that involves research, scholarship, building up the knowledge base that we need to be able to celebrate these types of things in an accurate and timely manner. Sometimes history, people tend to think of history as a static sort of a thing that you just look at. That's not at all what history is. History needs to be investigated like any other field, and you learn things as you go along the way. The closer you look, the more you learn. So it builds up our scholarship and research enterprise, which is important for our research institution. But it clearly also involves the community in a number of ways. The first of which is Carrie Sheward, as has already been mentioned, and her generous gifts to be able to make it possible. And she's contributed in many other ways to the university in addition to this. So that's a great partnership. That's a spark that gets things going. And then we're doing something that I would like to think contributes to the long-term community success and lifts the whole of our local regional community. And because we're Houston and we're big and we matter, that lifts things everywhere. So ideally, that's what a public institution does. It ties all these pieces together. We're serving the public good. We're advancing scholarship and research. We're helping our students advance in their own academic endeavor, but also in their careers. Everybody benefits from something like that when it really works, and this really works. So I thank you for being here tonight to celebrate with us, and we look forward to the program. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Mark Goldberg, Center for Public History Director.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's really great to see a full room. I first want to thank Dean Jackson. It's this partnership that exists between the libraries and CPH is a wonderful collaboration, and it's amazing to see the product of that partnership. And of course, I want to thank Dean O'Connor for I don't know what word to describe, unwavering support for the Center for Public History. That certainly precedes the month that I have been director of the Center for Public History. I have been at UH for 12 years, but I'm a native Houstonian. Yeah? So Houston history for me is personal, and so I really am excited about tonight's event. At the Center for Public History, our mission is to ignite an understanding of our diverse past by collaborating with and training historically minded students, practitioners, and the public through community-driven programming and scholarship. Since 1984, we've created collaborative research projects with university and community partners alike to generate research that is both local and global. And as public historians, we're committed to doing history for and with the communities of which we are a part. And we do this in 3 ways. So first, we train graduate and undergraduate students in public history methods, values, and ethics, and prepare them for careers in the public humanities. And our students have gone on to a whole range of jobs, including working at museums, archives, nonprofit work, government work, both in Houston and beyond. So this public humanities training really has an extensive impact. The second way that we do history is through public-facing projects like Houston History Magazine. Scholars, students, and community members work together to document our rich community histories. And third, through public programming under the CPH lecture series, we strive to make history matter in Houston by sponsoring lectures, workshops, discussions, and seminars that speak to the value of the humanities in the professions and in the public. So we are here, and I'm delighted to mark the latest issue of Houston History Magazine, Agents of Change, and the exhibit Agents of Change Celebrating Innovation at UH's Centennial. Both are part of the 100 Years of Stories, Documenting a Century at the University of Houston project, a 3-year collaboration with CPH, Houston Public Media, and the MD Anderson Library, supported by a gift from Carrie Short. The final 100 Years of Stories magazine will be released in December, and thank you, Ms. Short, for giving us and our students this wonderful opportunity. We also want to recognize, so I'm adding to this recognition, our former director of CPH, Dr. Monica Perales. Monica is now Associate Vice Provost of the UTSA Institute of Texan Cultures, but she led CPH for the past 5 years, oversaw the 100 Years Project, and taught the classes that curated the exhibit we'll be viewing today. It is my great pleasure to introduce my colleague, Dr. Debbie Harwell. Dr. Harwell is the editor of Houston History Magazine and instructional assistant professor in history and honors. Her undergraduate classes have conducted most of the research and the oral histories for the 100 Years of Stories project, as well as written the majority of the magazine articles. So join me in welcoming Dr. Harwell.
Thank you all. Can you hear me? Is that on? Okay. I got a special mic. Thank you all for coming here this evening and joining us for this great exhibit and our illustrious panelists. Houston History Magazine comes out twice a year, and this issue, as you know, is about agents of change, and so is the exhibit. And by agents of change, we mean the people who saw a need for something here at the university or in the community, or maybe both, and they took it upon themselves to make the change that they wanted to see. And so those are the sorts of people, the activists, the people who were proactive, that we have examined in both the magazine and in the exhibit. They may be students, they may be alumni, faculty, administrators, but they've all made a difference. Our panelists today remain agents of change, and so I want to start by introducing them. Gene Locke graduated from UH in 1969 and South Texas College of Law in 1981. He is a lawyer and former city attorney for Houston and a former Harris County Precinct 1 commissioner. He came to UH in 1965. Can't even read my own notes. He came to UH in 1965 and soon became a prominent leader in Afro-Americans for Black Liberation, also called ABLE, as well as being active in the local civil rights movement here in Houston. Graciela Saenz, or Gracie Saenz, earned 2 degrees at UH, a bachelor's degree in 1978 and her JD in 1986. She is a Houston attorney and community activist, as well as the first Latina elected to Houston City Council at large, and appointed to be mayor pro tem. She served from 1992 through 1997. At UH, she was also president of the UH Chicano Law Students Association, which raised funds for students in need. And you may be wondering why she's not right here at the table, and she's up there on the screen, and that's because COVID struck, unfortunately. But she's been very gracious to be here with us this evening. Grace Conroy, she received her BA in History at UH in 2022, and she's going to graduate from the Public History Master's Program at American University in December. And I guess I should mention that she's finishing a 2-year program in 3 semesters, so that's really pretty good. She has worked on every single part of the 100 Years of Stories project, including doing research for the Houston Public Media spots, conducting oral histories, and writing and editing articles that make up part of the exhibit, as well as the issues that we have here with us for 100 Years of Stories. So please welcome our panelists. So I know we usually do something like age before beauty or something like that, but I'm actually going to start with Grace, who's the youngest member of the panel. And Grace wrote a segment for the magazine on the founding of the University of Houston. So Grace, if you wouldn't mind, there may be some people here who don't know that story, so I thought we'd start with you and you can tell us how UH came to be.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Is it working?
I can't tell.
Is it on? So the University of Houston was founded during a time of great economic prosperity. In the city of Houston itself, the oil business was booming and the population in the city had grew over 100%. And during this time, there was a lot of change, and the school districts actually separated from the city government, and Houston Independent School District was created. The superintendent of the Board of Education was Edison Oberholzer, and Oberholzer really believed in public education and what it could do for people and help them excel in society and in life itself. And so one day, about a dozen of high school seniors at high schools around Houston came to him and they said, "We really want a junior college in Houston because either we don't have the grades to get into the Institute of Rice or we don't have the funds to go to a public university out of the state." And Oberholzer said, "That's a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to the Board of Education." He brought it up, and then in 1927, the Houston Junior College was established. And because there wasn't really funding, actually the first classes were held at San Jacinto High School. And over time, classes grew, and it was still high school during the day, but there was college classes at night, and it gave the students a time to still have employment and working class people, as well as those that had families and needed to take care of them. And over time, the enrollment grew, and Oberholzer realized that this needed to become a fully fledged 4-year institution. So once again, he went back to the Board of Education, and in 1939, a House bill was put up to establish the University of Houston. Unfortunately, there's still not enough funding for space, so classes resumed in San Jacinto High School, and over time, as enrollment continued to grow, they started taking up local churches in the evening. And then, as fortune would have it, Oberholzer was connected with Hugh Roy Colon, who was an oilman and philanthropist in Houston, and he loved the idea of a working class college because he didn't really have an education beyond 5th grade. And he said, if this was just another rich man's institution, I would not put my money behind it, but because I love the idea of it, I'm going to. So he helped finance the purchasing of land southeast of downtown Houston, where we are today, and he helped the construction of the first buildings. And in 1939, the first UH students had, or not the first students, but the first students who had classes on campus had it in the Roy Gustav Cullen building, which was named after Cullen's son. And as the years grew, and as many of us know, UH has continued to grow in enrollment and population, as well as success.
Thank you. Thank you. So before I come to Jean's question, I'm also going to mention that a second junior college was also formed at the same time, which was for African American students. So they did not both go to school at the same place. And they followed similar paths when what became the University of Houston went from being a junior college to a four-year school. So did what would become Texas Southern University. So they held classes at Yates High School because they also didn't have a dedicated building. And eventually, following sort of that same path, become a four-year school, become a state school. Actually, it became a state school before the University of Houston. So it's really about 20 years past that time when TSU becomes a four-year school, or becomes a state school, that Jean came to Houston to go to the University of Houston. So you came here in 1965, I'll get it right this time.
Yeah.
And you came here from East Texas, I think it was Marshall, is that
Marshall.
right? And that was also just as the Black Power movement was emerging on the national scene. So I would appreciate if you could tell us what Houston was like at that time, and a bit about how it impacted your experience here.
Yeah. Well, the simple answer to how Houston was, it was segregated. The races were divided. And with the division of races becomes the division of power. And so there was one community that had power and one community that didn't have power. One community that had money and one community that didn't have money. And with that segregation also became some misconceptions about people. Conceptions that one group of people were academically inferior and others were academically superior. And that the notion was that those of us who looked like me, who were academically inferior, could not compete at an all-white school. The reason that I came to the University of Houston was in the 1960s, we were beginning the real thrust toward integration. And I had this burning desire to at least show myself and show the world that at least I could compete. And all of my family had previously gone to Prairie View and had got wonderful education. And Prairie View would have been my choice, except for the challenge that I wanted to undertake. I had assumed that when I got to the University of Houston, that somebody would have told the university that we are now integrated. And as a result of us being now integrated, there must be a coming together. But campus life for the beginning black students was as segregated as the outside world. The benefit that we had in 1965 was there was a cluster of us, enough of us where we could at least gain strength and comfort from each other. I did not come to the University of Houston to be an agent of change. I came to get a degree and to become a lawyer. But somewhere along the way, not just Gene Locke, but a host of other black students, along with a host of other women, a host of other Hispanic students, a host of other international students, began to realize that the culture of the University of Houston was designed and permeated by not just white supremacy, but an ideology that European education is the only education that has value to anybody. And as a consequence of being shut out for so long, I think it started us to feel like we wanted to make a change. And it was in that context that some of our political activities on campus began to happen. I will say one thing. For many of us who were African American, and I'm sure this is also true with a lot of other Hispanics who came to U of H, we came from first and second generation of people who were going to college. So we had an affinity, a relationship with the community that was next to us. And so for us as black students, Third Ward became our haven. It became our sanctuary that allowed us to survive in a climate that was not at all time friendly and accommodating to us. As a consequence of that, our political activity at the university to change the University of Houston had to also be tied to changing the community around us, which put us in close proximity with the social and political and economic problems of Houston as a community as a whole.
So, as part of your activism, you became very involved with ABLE.
Yes.
And so what exactly were ABLE's goals at that time in this relationship with the community, as well as making change here at U of H? I know they made the 10 demands to President Hoffman, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, well, again, I want to emphasize the fact that while we're talking about ABLE and black students, there were a whole lot of other students who were doing the same thing. And there were a whole lot of women who were doing the same thing, trying to move the needle in a different direction. We started an organization called Committee on Better Race Relations. And it shows that there was a community of people who were not African American who were willing to join with us and try to make change. And that's an important thing that we should always remember. People in this room are advocates of history. And if you know American history, there's always been a community of Americans who wanted to do the right thing. Whether you talk about the American Revolution or the Civil War or after the Civil War or right now in 2023. And in that context, we tried to unite and find that community. So it was first the Committee on Better Race Relations, followed by the African Americans for Black Liberation. Our demands were basically to change the university, an African American studies program. And as a result of that fight, we now have African American studies, Hispanic studies, Asian studies, women's studies, on and on and on. We challenged the notion that European history and culture was the only thing of value. We had a demand for more financial aid for black students. As a result of that, there's more financial aid for all students now. We wanted more black faculty and staff and counselors. As a result, now we have diversity on the faculty. We wanted a black student union. You got that. You wanted the opportunity for the university to put in place a committee to at least look at problems with racial discrimination in grading. And it was a problem for us coming in because people had preconceived notions that black students couldn't be good students. The university did that. We called out the university for the poor pay for the janitors and the maintenance people who were making under minimum wage. And we did that because a lot of us came from families and we saw our grandparents and parents working like that. We called out the conditions of black athletes and improved that. We actually had to ask the university to hire a black coach. Can you believe that? You know, and we called out the notion that you ought to get academic credit for things that you do in the community. And as a result of that, my understanding is there are now programs that allow for that. And more importantly, the university now has a relationship with the community. So, you know, we paid a price for that. We didn't get everything we wanted, but I think it helped to move the needle and make U of H a better place.
I would agree with that. I'm curious to know one other thing before we ask Gracie some questions. I'm curious to know how you felt about the administration's response at the time And now, looking back on it, because now we've had, like, African American Studies has celebrated its 50th year in 2019. When you look back at it from today, do you feel the same way that you did at the time?
Well, when we made the demands, I think I was 20 years old, and I had the vision of a 20-year-old. And it was important for me to get energized behind my cause, so I had to have an enemy. That enemy was the administration. And we could see no good coming out of the university at that point. But in the course of negotiating to get the things that we wanted, we began to see that there were agents of change inside the university. And as I've gotten older and I've been in public service and I understand some of the constraints, I understand that President Philip Hoffman had a governor that was not sympathetic to him, and he could not respond in the way that I wanted to respond on the timetable that I wanted him to respond. So I have a perspective now that he was caught between a rock and a hard place, did the best that he could, but it was important for us to push the needle. But for us pushing the needle and making the demands, nothing would have happened.
Thank you. Good.
Hi, Debbie.
Gracie, I don't know whether to turn around and look at you, or can you see us?
I can see you, and first of all, let me take the opportunity to apologize to you and all the audience, and for not being able to be there. Unfortunately, COVID does take precedence here. So, but I am glad to at least be with you through Zoom.
Well, we appreciate it tremendously.
And just let me tell you that after hearing Gene Locke, that's one reason I supported him for mayor when he ran.
We do.
Okay, I can't hardly hear you, Debbie. So if you're
Okay.
asking a question, would you
that-
repeat?
Is that better?
That's
Can you-
better.
That's better? Okay. So you're a Houston native, and your family placed a great deal of importance on education. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a Latina growing up in Houston in the 1960s and 70s?
Well, first of all, let me set the record straight. It was my mother that really helped me, push me forward to get my education. My father was a traditional Mexicano, as they say, coming from, actually, he was born here in Houston in 1926. Unfortunately, during the Depression, at a time called the repatriation back to Mexico period, where they removed close to 600,000 Mexican citizens, including U.S. citizen children, from the United States. My father and his family was part of that. He came back as an adult. He is now celebrating 97 years here in Houston, but he had the idea that as a young Latina, I would eventually get married, have children, and an education just was not going to be necessary. He did apologize, though, when I graduated from law school, so that is a good thing. But I grew up, I was born and raised in Fifth Ward, in the cancer cluster called El Crisol. At that time, I thought Crisol stood for some sort of Aztec god when I was growing up, and now I find out it's the Crisol chemical that is used for the ties, for the railroad ties. But at that time, in the barrio of El Crisol, we were surrounded by our Fifth Ward neighbors of African Americans. And usually, I would say most of the elementary schools back at that time were segregated. But my elementary school, Kashmere Gardens, was one of the few schools that was actually integrated. There were Asians, African Americans, Hispanics, even Caucasians. We were all mixed in there. And it was in the 65s through, and so that was a good thing for me because two of my teachers were actually of Mexican Americans who had come back and were teaching. They benefited from the GI Bill. And so at the very young age, I really was inspired and mentored by these two teachers to pursue my higher education. And that became the basis upon which I was driven to get into the university. I graduated in 1971. I went on to Marshall Middle School, Jeff Davis High School, which is now Northside High School. And at the time, I had counselors and teachers that just didn't believe Latinas go to college. So I had my work cut out trying to convince those that I could make it, and I did it. Went on to the University of Houston, got my undergraduate degree in Spanish. And it's interesting because I thought I wanted to teach bilingual education at a time when bilingual education was still not in vogue, and they did not have the program set up at the University of Houston. Like Jean said, I could have counted the number of Latino students at the university even back in 1971, and there weren't that many of us. But I do agree with Jean. Many of us held together in clusters to help each other during the difficult times of university life. And I was fortunate enough to have been working also at the offices of the Financial Aid Office, Scholarships and Financial Aid. So I was able to benefit from the fact that working there allowed me to have college work study and all of the financial aid assistance. But I did not know any of that prior to going to the university. And later on, when the Project Brad started, which was a nonprofit started by James Kettleson, I became part of their board because I really wanted to help students be able to maneuver and understand how to get on into a university or college or career path. And that particular nonprofit organization, which is now under the auspices of the Tejano Center, has been absolutely instrumental in helping so many students at this point. Debbie, I could go on and on and on about my journey, what I did, and the things that we were up against as students. Is there something specific that I should be addressing at this time?
I think you've been addressing it, but I do have one other story I'd like you to tell. Could you tell about I think it's Carleton Cadets?
The what? I'm sorry.
The drill team in high school. Could you tell that story?
I became the first Latina top three, I guess, major at the Carleton Cadets at at Jeff Davis High School. At that time, our principal, who had been there for about 40 years, had called us in because the top three were a Latina, two Latinas, and an Asian young lady. And it was the first time minorities had actually held those positions in this high school in all its history before. And he called us in to ask us to dismantle the group because he felt that the founder of the Carleton Cadets was probably rolling over in her grave to know that Mexicans were in cowgirl outfits and marching to her original plan of what Carleton Cadets were supposed to be. I couldn't believe he was telling us this. Now I think he would have gotten fired. We could have filed a lawsuit now, but back then it was a given. It was just the principal said what he wanted and he did what he wanted. He said, if you did not do it, then we will not support you in any way at school. So you're on your own. We decided that we were not going to obey him. And I guess that was the beginning of my advocacy. And I was about 16 years old at the time. And we proceeded to continue the Carleton Cadets. marching band. We had been marching for the former 3 years. We had been doing everything like anyone else would have in training, and we competed and we won, and yet he wanted to remove us. So I tell that story. Flash forward, I'm at the now city council member. I've been asked to attend the football game between the Houston Oilers and the Dallas Cowboys in the Azteca Stadium in Mexico City back in the 90s. And here I am in the middle of this incredible 110,000 fans. And halftime show was Mexican dances. That's what the principal had wanted us to do to begin with. So maybe he was right.
Thank you. I'm curious to know, I want to go back to your time here at U of H with a couple of different questions. And one of them is if you saw any difference between the time you were here as an undergrad and your time in law school. And then also, I want to ask you about the kinds of activism that you got involved in at U of H during that time.
So in the undergraduate level, I was so busy trying to keep up with it all. I was working at the financial aid office, going to school full-time, classes full-time, and then I had an evening job as well. And then I didn't drive, so I had to catch 2 buses. So I know it sounds really weird that, you know, the snow and the water and everything else, right? But the reality was that I hardly had time to do anything in my undergraduate time there. I had finished my undergraduate work when I came back from Europe after having been with my husband who had been stationed abroad, and spent 2 years, and I finished at night school. So that was the nice thing about the University of Houston, was that, you know, you could have a night program and finish your studies. I actually had my first child in 1977. I think he is in the audience right now, my Daniel. And he came the year before I graduated. So it was a difficult time, but during that time, it was the types of activity was, you've got to understand, during the 70s, there was the integration, the busing. I had just come out of all of that, the civil unrest. We had the school walkouts. We had the Huelga schools as well here in Houston. A lot of activism was taking place. So a lot of the Chicano students, and we were at that time taking a stand of calling ourselves Chicanos, because that's what the name we were giving to identify our group. And the Chicano students would meet, and they would rally, try to get people to go out and vote, register people. We even had Maria Jimenez, who was very active at the university at that time, who actually took the position of union president, student union president, which was kind of out of the ordinary, but she did it. And again, it was through the help of our Black students, our Latino students, and other students that believe in the diversity. When I went to the flash forward, I left and became a paralegal, bilingual paralegal for 6 years with the law office of Charles Foster, which Charles is probably one of the most renowned immigration attorneys. So I learned a lot from him, and I went back to law school in 1993. By that time, things had changed at the university, and I'm sorry, 1983, a few years before. 1983 is when I went back to law school. I got my undergraduate degree in 77, and then the law degree in 1986. We had some times, difficult times, because I think one of the issues that Jean had talked about was the anonymity of professors grading your paper. We later found out that some professors really did know who they were grading, and they had ways of doing it. And so many students we felt that should have had higher grades did not. And there was no way of really contesting your grade, and it was a difficult time. We had the Chicano law students that we rallied together to help us with ability to study, so that we could pass the exams and eventually pass the bar exam. Needless to say, I ended up getting pregnant with my third child in my third year of law school. And miraculously, he was born in March. I graduated in May and took the bar in July. I think that prepared me for politics. Wouldn't you agree, Jean?
Yes.
One of the things that also we did when we were as Chicano law students was that when our students, many of them minority students, were being accepted, they were being accepted under what it was called a discretionary admission. And needless to say, because of that, they would not be advised of their admission until May, June sometimes. And by that time, when they would go and file for financial assistance, their financial aid would not come in until the end of September or October. And of course, if you know about anything about law school, you had to be prepared at least 3 weeks in advance of the first day of law school. So if you didn't have your books or supplies or even been able to pay your rent, it was a lot of pressure and strain on some of these students. When we asked for assistance through the university's Law Center's emergency fund, they denied the students based on the fact that they were they felt that they were high risk and not able to eventually graduate and therefore not pay the loan back. So they were denied even the emergency loans. So we banded together. We ended up selling fajita tacos, and we were able to raise about $1,000. And we decided to let the University of Houston Law Center administer the fund itself. This was during the Bakke years, and the assistant dean told us that was reverse discrimination because we were going to be using these funds for Chicano law students. And we had to advise them that anyone could be part of our Chicano law student organization, and that they did not need to be Chicanos. So he continued to deny the fund until we decided to call upon other attorneys who had graduated from the Law Center. We had Professor Olivas, we had Judge Lupus Salinas, we had Michael Solar. They all came about and asked for a meeting with the dean. And guess what? They decided to go ahead and set up an emergency fund just for our Chicano law students, actually for minority students, to have access so that in case of an emergency, they would be able to have funding. So I just felt that we needed to do something. We had to bring it upon ourselves to get it done, and then present it in such a way that they were convinced it would work.
And it sounds like you were very successful. So I want to turn the attention back to Grace and the 100 Years of Stories project, because now here we are, we're sitting here and we're listening to these amazing stories from Jean and from Gracie. So Grace, as I said earlier, has the unique perspective of having worked on every part of the 100 Years of Stories project. So I want to know why you thought that it was important to tell these stories.
Well, the short answer would be, after listening to both of those stories, I'm sure you all know why, they're incredible stories. The long answer would be, looking at how the University of Houston has almost been here for 100 years, you can look at that point blank and say 100 years, that's quite an achievement. From the beginning, it was founded for its community, but you also have to recognize the fact that that was just the white community. And if you disregard that and don't take into effect all the changes that the university has overcome throughout the years to where it got today, you would be ignoring its past and what makes UH as we know it today. And so I focused on the founding of the University of Houston and then also the founding of the Tillman J. Fertitta College of Medicine. So that's interesting because I got to see the beginnings and then notice how the values and the goals have kind of shifted over the years to where it ended, or our most recent success. And when I was speaking with the oral histories with first and second year medical students, a lot of them come from minority and lower income backgrounds. And they really just showed me how important it is that and one of the biggest goals of the College of Medicine is to create primary care physicians for lower income communities in Houston, because Texas is ranked one of the lowest in the ratio for primary care physicians for people. And so the goal of this College of Medicine is to create doctors that will go back to communities and help them and be there for them. And I was talking to these students, and they showed me how important it is to represent a community that you yourself are, because not only does that establish trust between doctor and patient, but it also inspires hope in them, seeing someone in a position of power or of education and think, I can become that, I have the opportunity to become that. And I think knowing all these stories and learning about them, it really shows how important all these changes have been made to come to where we are today.
So another question, as a student, how did it feel meeting history makers? So you were doing that with your oral histories, you're doing that today. How did that feel, and how has that shaped your career goals while you've been working on this project?
Well, I've always loved history, but I never had a personal connection to history before. And doing these oral histories and talking to people and meeting people like Jean and Gracie and understanding these stories on a personal level, you just connect with it so much more, and it makes it more important, and you want to actually give the care and the respect that history deserves and show it to a broader audience. That way everyone can also appreciate the history for how it is. So for affecting my future career goals, it definitely inspired in me a way to continue telling these stories for communities, because I think it's very important to learn about your own community, communities around you, the growth of that community, and the social activism that has come out of those communities.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to come back to Gracie and Jean in no particular order. You two can decide. Both of you were very active in serving UH in the past and today and supporting our students. And so I want to know what you feel is the most important change that you have seen the university make since the time that you were students here, and how can we hold on to those gains today? So I don't know which of you wants to go first there.
I'll go first.
I'll be,
Oh,
Jean,
no,
do you
no.
want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead, Gracie.
Okay. First of all, I think it's important that we have a diverse board of regents, and I think that is so important for our students to be able to see that the leadership, and with Renee Couture as the chancellor as well, it is an important reminder of the where we are in this city, and that is, it is a very international, very diverse city, and the university needs to be able to reflect that as well. I think as our population here in Houston is now at 46% Hispanics, I believe that there's great opportunities in the future. There's the University of Houston is now considered a Hispanic serving institution. which also is important for the future of our city and its success in the future as well. Educating our community is so important. Being able to see role models, being able to see professors in positions as well that are important. The research that is being conducted should be also conducted in the diversity of this community. The fact that more and more I see the university actually coming out into the community to do the research and to participate with community members, organizations, institutions is also very vital. It gives the students hands-on opportunities and introduces them to the community, and the community I know appreciates that as well. So those are just some of the things I think we need to continue to do. We need to continue to also protect our students. I recently heard about the mental health situations that were important to be addressed. And I'm glad that the university has taken some positive steps. But again, if there's anything that the community needs to also do, it needs to work in partnership as well with the university. So anything we can do on our end, I welcome to hear back as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I have been involved with the University of Houston for 58 years. And I have seen a lot of changes here. You know, the campus physically looks so great, the buildings, the research that goes on now, the expansion of academic opportunities, the enrollment. But all of those things you would expect to happen over a span of 58 years. The greatest change that I have is happening right now. And it's the fear that I have that this university, who has become one of the most diverse in the country, is under attack. And it's under attack by people who lead this state, who fund the money for this institution. And as a consequence, I can sit up here and brag about how we got African American studies and walk home tonight and realize that somebody wants to eliminate African American studies from the institution. And that fear for somebody who has the relationship that I have with the university is painful. And so as a consequence of it, I think my message is the university community has to understand that now is the time to band together. Now is the time to fight the assault on education generally, on public education in particular, and on the academic freedoms that exist in universities like this. And somebody at the University of Houston has to have the courage to stand up and be a change maker and not be afraid to put it on the line. Because if you sit and do nothing, and if we sit, not just you, but if we, because we're a family, if we sit and do nothing, we don't know what the future would have for us. And that's sad.
Thank you. So I'd like to take this opportunity now to open up to questions from the audience. I'm sure that some of you have something on your mind that you'd like to ask one of our panelists, or maybe all of our panelists. Usosa? I don't know everybody in the audience, by the way, but Usosa worked with us at the magazine for 2 years.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Usosa. I'm a senior biomedical engineering student here at the University of Houston. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. I'm also a member of, thank you. I'm also a member of the National Society of Black Engineers, and one of our goals is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers. And so, as you mentioned, Mr. Dean Locke, programs like the National Society of Black Engineers are currently under attack by the government. And so I wanted to ask you, when you were here at the University of Houston, when you were making being an advocate for change at the university, how did you have that courage that you just talked about to make those changes? And how would you advise members or people like me and our members who are currently trying to push for those changes to keep having that courage and to keep having that perseverance in this current climate?
Thank you for the question. As you get older, you get more fearful. When you're young, you can be fearless. And so it's not that I was a terribly courageous person. I had two things going. I was ignorant sometimes of the consequences of what we were about to try to undertake. And there were a band of other students who I worked with and drew strength from and support from. And if you take that and try to apply it to 2023 in your situation with students at the university in engineering, I think to the extent that you can get a collective group who will continuously talk about this issue and present the demands, the concerns, the fears that you have to the administration, I think you will find a much more receptive audience than we did back then. But even as you talk to people, many times they will have to be educated on the particulars of what you're going through, that even people of goodwill on top may not understand and be aware of. And so I would suggest that there is no magic formula, and there was nothing magical about what we did. I just think if you work together and keep focused on what you're trying to do and understand that somebody has to make this change, things will happen.
Other questions? Miranda. I'm
Yeah, you are good.
you would think I planted these people. Miranda is also one of our students who has worked with a number of CPH projects, including the 100 Years of Stories.
Hi, I wanted to ask Jean as well as Gracie and Grace if she has experience with this. There's this thing, I'm in a class that is part of the Hispanic Studies program here at U of H, which Gracie said that she studied Spanish. That's one of the majors that I have. It's service learning. So it's getting out into the Hispanic community in Houston and putting our language skills into practice. And we talk about cultural competency and not only studying the language, but understanding the culture. And I wanted to ask, I guess, really you, Gracie, what is the importance of these service learning, of getting these students out into the community, and how can U of H really devote more resources into that? And as Grace talked about, the medical school of getting these people back into their own communities, but on all disciplines, public history, medicine, I feel like that is something that is a way that U of H can really gain support in a way that it's a way of fighting against people who want to take down what we've built up, which is unity, equality, and diversity.
Well, oh gosh, there's so much there. I think it's well overdue that there is programming that could assist the communities. When I was in law school, I was fortunate enough to have a legal clinic that was started that gave me 5 hours credit. And that was all I needed to graduate my final 5 hours from law school. So luckily, it was a legal aid clinic in immigration, and it was el Centro para Ayuda de Migrantes. And I worked on nothing but El Salvadorian asylum cases. And there were so many that were filed and many that were accepted. And this was back in the 70s. So that immigration is one of the areas that an enormous amount of help is needed. We have the medical issues. We have so many of our community that are suffering from diabetes, hypertension, all sorts of mental disorders, and there's great needs there. There's need for surveys, for research, for data to be collected. The issue of gentrification, housing is such a big issue to the welfare and care of any family, of any community, and yet the Latino community is lacking in many ways in that area. And so we need help to find out how resources can be divvied up to assist families from losing their homes, from being evicted, from not having a place to live, and you have 2-3 generations living together. The city is growing by leaps and bounds, and yet many people are being gentrified. They're being forced out of their homes because of taxation. What are some of the policies that could be looked at that may be able to help? Education as well. We have so many of our students that are dropouts. We have HISD that is in the hands of the board of managers. Many of our schools are underperforming. We need help with tutors and mentors. The list can go on and on and on and on in terms of community and needs out here. There are moments when we have a tendency of wanting just to put our blinders on, and if we fail to see, then it does not exist. I just hope that, and I think the university is in many ways taking their blinders off and helping our students to learn by being in the community and helping.
Thank you, Gracie. Megan, this is weird. You think
I don't even
planted
know.
people
I'm
in the
sorry.
whole audience.
Did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I have a question for Mr. Locke. You mentioned that when you went to school here and you were a part of ABLE, that you look back and realize that President Hoffman was in a hard position between the state government and trying to advocate for students and listen to your demands. I see some parallels with our current government and our current administration being kind of between a rock and a hard place as well. What do you think our current administration could do to provide aid and support to students given the circumstances now?
Well, I don't know. Let me not think that I have answers to everything. You have great leadership at the university now, and I know that the heart and the policies that the heart of the administration and the policies that she would want to put in place are in the right place. But it's a state institution, and that comes with that is the reality. In my experience, in 1969, the number of state senators, state representatives, lieutenant governor, and governor who sent letters to and phone calls to Philip Hoffman saying, you got to keep this in check or else, it put him in a bad place. I don't know that those kinds of calls are coming, but the message is coming in. And so as a consequence of that, there has to be a counterforce on the other side. Inside the university community, there has to be support for the leadership, and there has to be demands put on, and I don't use the word demands, there has to be stress put on the administration for them to know that there are folks who really don't want you to bow into. And so tension would be a good thing. Tension kind of goes with the job. She will do a great job with it. I have all the confidence in the world. She cannot wave a magic wand and just make it all appear. And we've got to find a way to be a support base for her.
Yes.
And a startling statistic from the last general election we had was that 25% of the under 25-year-old registered voters opted to vote, which means 75% of the people who are probably here at this university and others did not vote. That's our only tool right now. Would you agree?
Yes and no. I agree that voting is the tool, and it is an important and probably predominant tool. But I think that this country has moved when there have been mass protests and demonstrations in the streets, because it garnishes the attention of not just the local communities, but of the world. And if we could have those kinds of movements in the right direction. The problem we have in America now is we have that kind of movement, but it's going in the wrong direction, and it's not with protest in the streets, it's online, undercover, right-wing fanatics who are pushing an ideology that right-wing politicians are supporting. So now coming back to voting, I think the thing is, if we can get people organized to vote and get young people to vote, there's a whole nother discussion, though, that we don't have time to go into tonight, as to how you energize young people when they don't see their faces in leadership. And I'll leave it at that.
Gracie, do you want to answer that also?
Well, I think I agree with Jean. And let me say this as well, because I have often heard that we have, and I've heard it from some certain politicians, that they don't have to worry about the Latino vote or the Hispanic vote because they don't vote anyway. So they don't have to be concerned about whatever needs they have. I feel like if you're representing a community, you represent everybody, and you should represent even those that may not have voted for you. They're taxpayers as well. And so I really feel that we want to encourage as many people to come out to vote. It has been kind of dismal when it comes to certain elections. A lot of people will pay attention to who's running for mayor, but very few will pay attention to who's running at the city council level. I remember I was desperate to try to get attention when I was running. I could not afford the $350,000 that they wanted to be able to publicize my campaign citywide. So it was all grassroots when I ran and was able to get in. It hadn't happened since then. Since 1997, I was the last Latina to be voted at large. We've only had 2 Latinos in at-large seats. We have 1 Latino now out of 16. We need to continue to encourage. I'm very pleased to know that there are a lot of Latino Hispanics running for office. I would hope everyone would take them into consideration. And there are moments when I have to remind people that, we're stepping up to the plate as well. And we are glad to be able to represent our white brothers and sisters and our Black brothers and sisters, just like they represented us for so many years.
We'll take one more. I want to add something to respond to that first. One of the things, too, is we have to think about, well, how easy or difficult is it for a student to even register to vote? And it has become increasingly more difficult. Now you have to go online, you fill out a form, then you have to print it, then you have to sign it, then you have to put it in the mail, which means you have to go figure out a place to buy a stamp and an envelope when other states are registering people online. But Texas doesn't make that option available, so that's incredibly inconvenient. And also Texas is attempting to, or I believe they have actually taken away the opportunity for students to vote on campus where they're in school. So I think if we didn't maybe put up so many roadblocks to students voting, we might have a higher percentage participating. We have time, I think, for one more question, and then we'll do our closing remarks so that you can go see the exhibit.
Hi, my name is Pascual Ortiz. I'm a chemical engineering student with a minor in Spanish. I'm really interested in history, and my question is for Jean and Gracia. And it is if y'all could talk about any specific examples or stories of your time here at UH during the 70s and 60s that really stick with you, where you were discriminated against.
Well, for me, it's easy.
Debbie, could you repeat the question?
Sure. He was asking for you all to tell about an experience in which you were discriminated against during the time at U of H, correct?
Yeah. For me, it was the very first week, probably the third day that I was here. After I checked into the dormitory, I had to go down and register and pay my fees. I had worked all summer. I didn't really have any money, but I had been told that Texas gave free tuition to the valedictorian of their class. And I had been valedictorian at Pemberton High School, an all-black school in Marshall, Texas. So I proudly took the little money that I had raised, earned during the summer with my new blue jeans and T-shirt and rolled into the office and said, I'm ready to pay my fees. And they gave me a figure on tuition. I said, well, I was valedictorian of my class. It's probably on my high school transcript. And the lady looked at me and said, yeah, but you finished from a black school. I don't know if we can give you the scholarship. I don't think it applies to you. And I had to literally fight for a day and a half to get somebody to recognize that I went to a public school in the state of Texas, and the law allowed for every valedictorian to get free tuition. So that was my first experience, followed, unfortunately, by several others. But I would be remiss if not saying this. For every instance where I suffered painful discrimination, there was somebody raising their hand to help me who didn't look like me, somebody who was offering a kind word, somebody who was smiling and wanting to make a conversation. So let's not paint the University of Houston in 1965 as 100% racist. That was a significant population of people who were racist here. There was a significant population of people who wanted to have the university open. And painfully, there was a significant number of people who were just clueless to what was going on in the world. And that's kind of reflective of American society now.
Gracie, do you want to share a story for?
I think, well, like Jean, there were moments when, you were called names, actually. And I remember it was the first weekend of undergraduate school, and I was walking we were going towards orientation, and there was a group of young girls ahead of me, but they were walking really slow, and it was just all these groups going towards the auditorium. So I decided to walk a little faster, and I got in front of them, and they started calling me names, derogatory names. And I turned around and I looked at them like, are you serious? Are you students at this university? I asked. And they jumped back thinking that somehow or another I was about to jump on them. They got scared, and they all pointed to the girl that said what she said. And then they all backed away from her. So she immediately apologized, and we continued towards the auditorium. But that was one incident that just, took me off guard, and it didn't feel good. But like Jean, I think I had so much other moments where people were really, really helping me and were there to guide me. I was fortunate to have been employed at the financial aid office, because at that office, not only was the director and the staff so helpful in guiding me through everything I needed to do and take, and the students that were working there as well, second, third year students, and they were very, very helpful. So I took that one moment and I put it behind me. In law school, there was moments where we heard certain professors saying that because of the minority students increased in the numbers at the law center, that we had dumbed down the score for the people that were passing the bar exam, and they blamed it on the minorities. So again, there was no facts or information on that, but they just continue to make it seem that somehow or another we were not as good or good enough. In the end, when you get your law degree and you pass the bar, you become an attorney just like anybody else. So those were moments that were difficult, and there were individual scenarios, but I usually confronted them. They apologized, and we left well enough alone.
Thank you. So I want to thank our panelists this evening, all three of them, for being here. Let's give them a round of applause. And I want to thank all of you for being here as well. We really appreciate it. When you came in, you should have gotten a bundle with 2 magazines in it. One of them includes stories about Jean's time here at the University of Houston. The other one includes an article on Gracie. So you will get to read about our panelists in those magazines. Grace's articles, not a story about her yet, but her 2 articles that she wrote are in some of the 100 Years of Stories magazines that are available out front. If you didn't get a bundle of magazines, please be sure you do that before you leave this evening. They're at the table up front. At the Center for Public History and at Houston History Magazine, we rely on the generous support of people like you who, like us, share the value of keeping Houston history alive and supporting our students and supporting student success. So if you like this program and you want to support us, you can go to our website, houstonhistorymagazine.org. You can purchase a subscription. You can purchase a gift subscription for everyone that you've ever known. They're only $20, so it's quite a bargain. Or you can donate. So either click on Buy Magazines or click on Donate, and it'll take you to the appropriate spots. We invite you to visit the Agents of Change exhibit, which is right out here. Our student curators who are here this evening, if you guys could stand, Raheel Asghari, Katie Hammer, Claire Randall, and Jesus Sanchez. They will be sort of like your guides for this evening, along with Mary Manning, who you met a few minutes ago when she stood. They'll be guiding you through the exhibit. And I want to say to the curators, Dr. Perales emailed me and said, because I had sent her pictures of the exhibit yesterday, and she is so proud of you, and she told me to be sure and express that to you all for your work. And so I also want to mention, when you go past the 100 Years of Stories exhibit, you will see another exhibit out there right in front of Special Collections. That is celebrating the 20th anniversary of Houston History Magazine, which we are celebrating with this upcoming fall issue for the city. It'll be out in December. And also 10 years of the Welcome Wilson Houston History Collaborative, so we're very proud of that. I want to thank Dean Jackson and Dean O'Connor for being here, for welcoming us, for your support. To Mark Goldberg and Monica Perales as directors of the Center for Public History, and to Marty Malosi, even though he maybe wasn't right here working on 100 Years of Stories, he is always there as our support, and he gave me feedback on the article I wrote for the magazine. So I certainly need to give him some credit as well. I want to thank our program director, Wes Jackson, who's over here. He was coming around with the microphone. Wes took care of all the fine details, and believe me, there were a million moving parts in this evening. And to Araceli Lara, our graduate assistant, who also did a lot of hard work. Thank you to Christian Kelleher, to Mary Manning, and to Emily Vinson from Special Collections, to Bethany Scott, and to Greg Yerke from Preservation and Reformatting. And you can't see him because he's behind the wall, but thank you to Iggy Harrison and his team from UH Streaming Media, who always make us look like $1 million. And you will be able to see this event later online thanks to his hard work as well. And also I want to recognize Fujio Watanabe, who is over here from Houston Public Media. Fujio is the person who put together the 10 videos for the 100 Years of Houston HPM side of our collaboration, and those videos are on the screen out there at the exhibit. I have one last thank you. I want to thank Carrie Shewart, as did my colleagues, but I have a few other little things I'm going to say about this contribution. As a result of her gift, there were 10 video and 10 radio spots produced by Houston Public Media with help from our undergraduate students doing research. 4 full and partial issues of the magazine, 5 public events featuring students' work, this Agents of Change exhibit curated by 7 of our graduate students, 74 oral histories, 13 student internships and assistantships, and 55 classroom students participating in oral histories and writing magazine articles. So I think we really got our students involved here and had a lot of fine production coming out of this collaboration. And the last thing I'd like to do is ask all the students who happen to be here this evening, and it's not all of them, but the students who participated in any part of the 100 Years of Stories project, please stand and be recognized. Thank you very much. And again, thank you all for coming. Please enjoy refreshments if there's anything left, and make your way over to the exhibit and take a look at that. Thank you.
You need to go.
Thank you so much.
Gracie, thank you. We really
Thank you,
appreciate
Debbie.
it.
Thank you to Dean O'Connor and all the panel. Jean, it was nice seeing you.
It's great
Thank
seeing you, Gracie. Take care. Get well.
Take care.
Thank you. I think I'm on the down side now. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.